Welcome back, folks, to Pits to Podium. At last, after what feels like an eternity, we are back with the race weekend with the Russian GP in Sochi. First time in ages, in fact, that multiple thousands of fans will be allowed into the circuit. That's something we must speak about later on. But firstly, Kunal, let's build it up. Something really big is coming on Pits to Podium. I'm buzzing. I've literally got goosebumps all over me. What's it all about?
Well, there is a lovely Grand Prix prediction league that we've started. Basically, you guys can engage with us and predict who your winners or losers of the weekend would be. There are lots of details, on our Instagram channel and on Twitter. So go ahead, engage with those posts, and you guys can actually win F1 themed caricatures. And I've seen them in action. I've seen them being developed, and they look stunning.
And they're mind blowing. And in fact, another thing is that we can also feature in our post-season review video. That is for the top three, and it's very easy. Nothing to do as if you have to log on to F1 Fantasy or do all that nonsense. Very simple. Communicate through us on Instagram. We've got a very 3 or 4 step policy of how to go ahead with it, and it's all through the comment section or the replies on Twitter. Top right hand corner. That is where our social handles are, and also in the description. Take part. I'm sure you'll love it. I'm sure we'll be able to go ahead and build a very big community of all you Formula One fans. I can't wait for it, and I know you can't wait to take part as well. But okay, prediction competition aside, that's one thing making me very excited. The other thing that's making me very excited is that Formula One is back. Now, it's not really come back to the best of circuits, I can imagine, but still, it's something.
It is, it's going to be such an antithesis from Mugello, because Mugello was, old school
Yeah.
gravel traps. And, we had high speed corners and fast and flowy corners, but Russia is going to be more like the
Uh,
street circuit as we know it. Low to medium speed corners at best, lots of right-handed, corners. So for those who love geometry, will love the layout of the circuit that's there. Of course, we come with a lot of hope and a lot of expectations, because the two races in Italy really were entertaining, and here's hoping that the Russian Grand Prix at Sochi can also entertain. But Soumil, more than anything else, this is the closest Formula One and motorsport can get to the Olympics. Yes, I
yes.
know that the FIA and the World Motorsport Council are trying to get motorsport, a branch of the Olympics at some point. But at this moment, this is the closest we can all get to the Olympics.
Exactly. No Japanese GP this time as well. So we don't really go close to Tokyo. Instead, we've got a circuit where we actually had the Olympics, what, 6 odd years ago. It's been a while since the last Sochi Winter Olympics. Lovely, lovely games, those. But on the whole, what I'm trying very hard not to use that word. Let's say a rather tasteless circuit. What this is exactly what happens when you take your ruler and you say, okay, it's a nice 90-degree angle here. So you take a ruler and a protractor, 90, 90, 90. Oh, then the big D. Okay, I'll make something like that, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you end up with something that nobody in the world likes. Still, we'll give it some credit. We've seen Mercedes do very well over here. And I think that has to be the first talking point in picture, because when we initially came to Sochi, I remember they were hyping up videos of Sebastian Vettel previewing the track. And 2014 was the year when Sebastian Vettel was 4-time world champion coming in. Red Bull were not really strong, but we thought, okay, something could happen here. But let's call it the Mercedes Union, actually. That's what this place has been all about. They've won every single time. And let's say they've dominated here, haven't really faced any competition at all.
They haven't, and that's the one thing that we'll all look forward to, that how many more seconds ahead can Mercedes finish off the competition. But if that's what is sort of boring you guys already, I know Somil and I don't get bored with this. We
Yeah.
still watch it with as much intent. But
The midfield.
yeah, I'm telling you, Samuel, the one thing to look forward to is going to be Bottas versus Lewis Hamilton. We've seen Valtteri Bottas, he's not won a race since the opening round of the season. Lewis has literally been on a rampage, winning as many
Yeah.
races as he can. But Russia has shown before that Valtteri, this is one of his stronger circuits. We've seen that the gap between the two drivers is less than a tenth in qualifying, so it can literally go either way, here and there. So I'm really rooting for a Bottas versus Hamilton battle in qualifying. The other stat that I wrote, and there's an extensive post on Pits to Podium, which Nityanand and Sundaram have written, that Lewis Hamilton hasn't been on pole since 2014 now. Isn't that the
Hmm.
most shocking stat for the race that's coming up?
It is. It's interesting. It's interesting. It shows that Lewis Hamilton hasn't really been able to get it clicked here in qualifying on this circuit. But boy, when it comes to the race, this man is something else. Also, big shout out to our stats review post. Check it out on the website. It's awesome. Generally, not promoting it just because it's our brand. If it would be someone else as well, I would say the same. But coming back to Mercedes, it's a big weekend for Valtteri Bottas. Interestingly enough, I think a couple of rounds ago when Valtteri Bottas actually passed Max Verstappen in the championship. Can you believe it? Around halfway in, and Bottas was supposed to be the only contender for Lewis Hamilton, wasn't even in second place. That's the kind of year he's been having. But to his credit, he's been superb in qualifying. Just that extra hundredth of a second, and you can't really split it up, can you? What do you do to get that extra 100th of a second? So I think for him to win, it has to be something at the start, doesn't it?
It has to be something at the start, or he could be hoping that with Netflix
Ah,
recording Lewis's potential 91st win, he would be hoping that if there is a Netflix curse whatsoever, and we've seen that it has been so for Red Bull, for Ferrari, and for Mercedes in the past, he would hope that the Netflix curse is only on the Lewis Hamilton side of the garage. And another interesting thing, the fun that we have at Valtteri time and again, which is Valtteri, it's James,
James. Ah,
actually happened at this circuit. So he would
yeah.
definitely want to, erase all possible, memories of those days, of his Mercedes career.
I was angry that day. 2018 Russian Grand Prix. I was an angry man. I've written the whole column about why team orders in Formula One should exist but shouldn't exist. It's something more like the gentleman's kind of spirit like you have in cricket. Something quite like that. Spirit of the game. That's the exact word I'm looking for. But I hope Bottas delivers this time out because that one just left me with a big, big hole in my heart saying, oh man, this is just a bad sign for the years to come. But let's hope he does well. Let's hope Bottas is able to mount a challenge. Who knows? The last time Netflix were with Lewis Hamilton, something or the other happened, something rather special. We'll let you find which race that one was. But the next big thing, Kunal, that we have to come to is the fans because Sochi, for the first time now in 2020, must seem like something rather outrageous, but Russia has got 30,000 fans coming in to watch this race. That's half the capacity of the circuit normally. And apparently, all the tickets are sold. Now, on one side, you love to see the sport and the world is coming back to normal with sporting events being filled out. But I don't know, is it a bit too soon? Is it a bit too early? Or can this become something like a hotspot, I'm assuming? Because even Will Buxton now, even he's tested positive for the virus. And I know there's going to be a big shield between the members of the paddock and the fans, but still, it's something slightly worrying, isn't it?
It is worrying, and maybe this is a way of the Russian Federation to showcase that, hey, we're immune, or maybe of course everyone is now trying to come out of the vaccine.
Yeah.
So maybe it's one of those ways to say that our vaccine is probably working, or at least the steps taken towards towards sort of stopping the spread of the infection, but trying not to go political or medical and political
Yeah.
at the same time. I think the only fan that I'm excited to see, or rather two fans that I'm excited to see, at this weekend is a very old fan of Formula One by the name of Bernie Eccleston.
Oh,
It'll be
yes.
great to see if he is going to be attending the race. In the last couple of months, he made statements that he's busy with his newborn son. We know he had a son at the age of 89.
Another one.
And yes, so he's busy with his son, so we don't know if he's going to attend. And if he does or doesn't attend, does this impact his best friend Vladimir Putin from attending?
Oh, Bernie. Oh, how do you get it done, my man? that's something we that's something for another day. How can you actually get a child at 89 years old? That's Bernie Eccleston for you. He's a very strong-willed man, let's call it that way. But yeah, it's a big statement for the Russian Federation to show that they can host a race with fans coming in. We had 3,000 fans actually with day passes at Mugello last time out. 30,000 is a big jump. Obviously, let's hope to see how that plays out. But coming back to the action on track, this was all off the track, some more marketing related, more PR statements that people want to show. But on the track, there is a rather entertaining battle brewing up because we know that, okay, Red Bull, yeah, perhaps they won't be able to challenge Mercedes, but I have a feeling that McLaren and Renault could be very well in contention for the top midfield honors. And that's a good, what do you consider? That's a good tip if you're predicting in the Pits to Podium prediction competition because these two guys, this circuit suits them big time.
It does, but Soumil, I'm going to predict the other way. I'm going to predict that it's going to be Racing Point
Ah,
who'll get
come
best of the
on.
rest. I'm going to predict that it's, if there's anyone who has a chance for the podium, it's Sergio Perez. I'm
Oh,
predicting
yeah.
he's going to be the 10th driver this season to stand on the podium. But I think it's going to be the most difficult prediction, the best of the rest. I know you get points to predict that in our Grand Prix prediction league, but interesting times because of the whole Perez Vettel Aston Martin issue that we're saying. I know Perez just made a statement saying that Racing Point are already beginning to hide things from him,
Hmm.
so one doesn't know how that's going to shape up. Okay. In talking of McLaren, Lando Norris has had 6 consecutive race finishes in the points. This is again thanks to the stats review that we've had on pitstopodium.com. And as for Renault, it's not been the most favorable circuit yet, but in the last triple header, they had 2 fourth place
Yeah.
finishes, which again is brilliant momentum, hopefully for them to take forward.
No, it is. It's very good for Renault. Initially, we were all lamenting them or criticizing them really for not really getting the best out of their car and saying, yeah, it's been so long you've had a manufactured effort in Formula One. Where is your world title? Where is it to show for? But they've been making gains. They've been doing a good job, and those fourth place results are good momentum. Who knows? Maybe that momentum can be carried on by another young driver, 40-year-old young driver, trying to test in the young drivers test in Abu Dhabi later on. But Kunal, performance-wise, who do you think is going to have the edge here? I mean, you mentioned Racing Point, but what is it about them that makes you feel that okay, this is going to be their weekend here at Sochi?
I think we all know it's the pink Mercedes that we
Yeah.
we we keep mocking at them, but overall, it just seems that this design philosophy or approach they've taken just allows them to extract that much more from the car. Typically, I remember since my days at Force India, we already would know which circuits would be favorable and which ones wouldn't. We've seen that with the pink Mercedes design philosophy. A lot more circuits are favorable towards the Racing Point team. So that's one of the reasons why I would sort of go backing them to go and get the best of the rest, title or best of the rest position at Sochi.
But they've not really been able to get it on 100%, have they? Because they said, I think a few members of the technical team said that, okay, we've got the concept in. It's very similar to the Mercedes car, but it's not just as simple as copying the design and going ahead. You truly,
Absolutely.
I mean, apparently, at least that's what I read from the quotes and everything. They weren't able to fully dial the setup in. And they've been improving for sure. Racing Point have been making gains, but are they there yet? Because they've got the car for that. But as we just mentioned, it's not just about copying a car and going on ahead. There are so many changes that you can make and tinker with every single car that the performance can just go one way or the other with that.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said that they need to dial in the setup, they need to dial in the car. They're, again, it's a new philosophy that they are understanding and getting more insights on.
Yeah.
So I think progressively they will get quicker, and that's what we've seen. That in the last couple of races, suddenly they're more in contention. I remember a few episodes ago we actually called them the most high profile underachievers of
Yeah.
2020 because one was expecting that they would take the fight to Red Bull, but here they've sort of ended up just still being in the midfield battle fight that's there. So let's see how that goes. But I'm still very hopeful that Red Bull are able to challenge Mercedes, and I'm going to sort of lay out a couple of reasons why I believe that. So, like we said, the circuit characteristics are fairly different to Mugello, but also the surface is one of the smoother surfaces of all the circuits on the calendar, and that usually sort of gets a little tricky. And tire management is key. Sector 1 and Sector 2 is usually very medium speed corners, and Sector 3 is down to very low speed, right angled corners as
Yeah.
we call them. So I somewhere expect that Red Bull will try and do all they can to put Mercedes under pressure to use up their tires faster And again, one of the firsts that's coming up for this Grand Prix weekend is that Pirelli are bringing their C5, or the softest compound, to this race. This compound has never really featured in 2020, at least. So
Yeah.
it's going to be another interesting ingredient when it sort of comes to extracting pace, tire management, and maybe even opening up a few different strategy varieties for race day.
Now, Kunal, I have a question for on behalf of all the viewers. Ambient temperature. We know that track temperature has a huge impact on the way the tires wear out and the way they progress. It's going to be around 28 degrees Celsius while the race goes on. That's what the predicted weather is. Slightly warmer on the warmer side, at least by European standards. And Mercedes normally have had issues with cooling the car. Now, this is something we saw big time last year. We saw that in Monza as well when Lewis Hamilton was coming back from the field. Now, they're not going to struggle in that department. They're not going to be sitting behind 20, 15 odd cars struggling to go past. That's not going to happen. The chances of that are very, very rare. As the man who actually bet on Pierre Gasly, Carlos Sainz, and Lance Stroll on the podium would know about that. But on the whole, how will that impact Mercedes? Because traditionally they've been struggling with cooling. This is a slightly warmer track. You mentioned smoother surfaces. Is there just a little bit to worry about, or am I just speaking in Toto Wolff's language?
Uh, we'll know all about it on Friday when they run through to practice. I think there's always a bit of concern, given that what happened at the British Grand Prix was only a few races ago. Temperature, tires, tire surface, sorry, circuit surfaces, and so on. Sochi is also very. Sorry, what I meant was that the rear tires light up far faster in Sochi than in at the other circuits, so to say. So at the end of the day, that's the only hope we all have as fans, that there is some bit of pressure that falls onto Mercedes to sort of manage their performance. But like we started the episode saying that Mercedes have dominated here, so they
Yeah.
probably know all the tricks of the trade they need to know to sort of go and put out another dominating show out there.
Before we go to the lower midfield, what are your thoughts on Red Bull here? Do you reckon Albon can come up with something special? Of course, he got his first podium in the last race. What about Max Verstappen? Where do you think they'll be around? I think they're just going to be in a league of their own of sorts.
I think they'll be in a league of their own. They'll be too quick for the midfield, but they'll not be as quick enough for Mercedes, at least one of the Red Bull racing cars, I would say. Talking of Albon, let's hope that, with the pressure of the podium off his shoulders, he's able to stick it closer to Max Verstappen, because that's eventually one of his key performance criteria that everyone's hoping for. And talking of Max Verstappen, let's remember he's not been on the podium for the last two races. He's suffered from retirements. So I'm sure he's itching to get back onto the podium and, get back to at least trying to challenge the Mercedes cars. And that's where I think they'll be. So if I were, or not if I were, for the Grand Prix Prediction League, you get bonus points if you get the podium trio prediction correctly. And I'm definitely predicting for the two Mercedes drivers, followed by Max Verstappen.
Verstappen had a bit of a tricky week on the simulator lately, but over here on the track, well, he's the man, isn't he? And you can surely bet on him to be driver number 3, if not number 2, over here at Sochi. But the last thing that we can actually come to is the lower midfield. We've got Alfa Romeo, Alfa Tauri. Sadly, now we have to put them back in the lower midfield after the debacle of Mugello. Then we've got who else have we got? We've got Haas and Williams too. Now, George Russell said recently that Spa and Monza are going to be bad circuits for Williams, as they were in the end. And he said that perhaps we could have a better run of fortune from Sochi, because they've apparently found a little bit more downforce on the car. Do you see something coming for Williams? And what about Danny Kvyat? He's actually the home race driver here. We forgot to mention that.
Danny Kvyat, I'm hoping he's able to deliver performances. Alpha Tauri are just 13 points away from Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. Okay. They have scored points in 8 out of the 9 races this season. And of course, just once have they scored double points. Okay. And, the whole momentum is towards Pierre Gasly. I'm hoping that, Danny Kvyat is able to use his home Grand Prix to sort of pull in a really strong performance. As for Williams, I think George Russell in Q2, again, that would be fantastic for them. It's one of the standard performance metrics that, Williams, Mercedes, and George Russell would have for George Russell himself. And that said, it's going to be a tough race overall when it comes to race day for the lower midfield. I really hope Kimi Raikkonen doesn't end up being 20th and dead last.
And Kunal, finally, one last question that we had in mind. If you were a midfield driver, what is your key to success in Sochi? What do you do to get it right here?
Well, I'm hoping I don't say tire management, because that's what typically getting a good lap in qualifying has been. The DRS effect is really, really strong, so there will be overtaking opportunities. So it's not necessary that the position I qualify in is the position that I could probably end up finishing the race in. In fact, pole, as we've seen, ends up pretty much losing
Yeah.
position pretty much on the first lap of the race itself. So I think the only thing is going to be to try and keep the first lap clean. There are lots of lines going through turn 3, as we know. We saw Kvyat and Vettel, Formula One's overplaying their crash from 2015,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Or
16,
2016.
16, yeah.
Yeah. And so just keeping it clean and waiting for all the overtaking opportunities would be my key to success. And really keeping my fingers crossed that there actually are a variety of tire strategies my team could, rely on to help me gain more positions.
Let's hope for the same. Cue up the hard bars. Formula One finally comes back to Russia. Fingers crossed for a good race. And the winner, of course, also gets some good old vodka. So that's another thing to play out for. But once again, folks, thank you so much for watching Pits to Podium, as always. Pleasure having you here. I know we've said this multiple times, but in case you've forgotten, I know you haven't. The video is almost done. Prediction competition on Pits to Podium social handles. The links are down in the description. I know you'll enjoy playing it. So join us in. Should be a fun one. Until then, folks, we shall see you on Sunday night for the post-race debrief. And till then, bye-bye and good night. Thank you so much, Kunal.
Thanks, Soumil. See you guys. Bye-bye.